keeping arrangements. There are no planned fire alarms. If the alarm should sound, please exit the building using the nearest available fire exit. Once leaving the building, please make your way to the muster point, which is located by the staff car park and is identified by a green sign positioned by the shrub bed. Please make yourself known to a member of staff if on duty. This meeting is recorded. The meeting may also be recorded and broadcast by the press and members of the public. Please see section 8 of the guidance for public participation, including recording and use of social media at meetings. We'll just have a minute just to gather our thoughts before I formally start the meeting. Thank you for that. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll start the meeting with apologies.
Councillor Simon Lloyd and Councillor Melody Roberts.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Councillor Mayor's van broke down just before she's due to come, so I would like to give apologies on her behalf in case she doesn't get it recognised.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest and dispensations? Do we have any written ones so far? Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any councillors need to give this evening? Fantastic, so we'll move on then. We don't, this time around we don't have Helen, but I would like councillors please to note that they have received the report from our Chief Inspector. Thank you very much, duly noted, and of course the ACSA report. Thank you. At this point, Councillor Wade, do you want to just give a little account of the ongoing matter?
Well, yes, actually, I believe you're referring to the...
I'm being elliptic here.
Okay, thank you very much. So yes, I have had comment from a resident who I've met with regards to the youth shelter that was placed at Cosworth Way play area, Orchard Way Wild Garden, and I've also had contact from another resident who lives nearby as well, raising some concerns. These concerns have been shared with the Hanley Trust and indeed our ACSOs, and I've met with at least one of the residents in person to collate all their concerns. The challenge obviously is that who this youth shelter is for, to clarify that the people who are using it are getting to utilise it, and that any actions that are going on in there by a group of people who are arguably ill-suited to it or too old for that shelter are being dealt with by the police and the PCSOs who are regularly patrolling the area. I do want to bring this up in community because it's a community's issue, but the residents who I've spoken to, one lives in the Cosworth Way area and the other lives in Moorland Close. And my concern is that I want us to at least have a discussion about an appropriate way forward with regards to ensuring that that play area can be used by families and young children in addition to this amenity that we placed that was asked for by the residents of that age. But as I say, we have amenities next week, which is an appropriate time I think to discuss it in more detail. But I have been in touch with two residents who raised it directly to me and in detail with me rather than just on social media. And I have at least met one of them in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I also add though, I'm grateful to members of the Hanley Trust who also work very closely with the young people who use the area. Thank you very much for that. Right, next item then is minutes. Can I have a proposer and seconder for the minutes?
I'll propose the second.
Do we have any? Yep, excellent. Are we all happy to agree the minutes? Thank you. Thank you very much. And on to Chairman's announcements. I'd like to thank officers and councillors who facilitated the second Christmas lights competition. This initiative also helps to support local business. I'm not going to steal Councillor Wade's thunder by announcing the winners, but I'd like to congratulate all who took part this year. I've had a response from the NFDC planning department, the issues with the private car park we know as Waitrose car park. The planning issues have been resolved. 2 signs on the camera did breach planning regulations, but that is being dealt with. I'd like to thank all involved in evidence gathering for their efforts there. I'd also like to thank those who registered an interest in helping to keep the horticulture show going. There is still time to sign up if you've not done so. This is a really good time to focus on growing produce. My thanks to the park for her work in promoting this historic local institution. If you've not contacted me with the comments or suggestions or concerns about the 112 bus route or buses in general, please do so. I am attending a Hampshire-wide transport forum this coming Monday, so it's not too late to get any concerns or comments through to me in time for that. Thank you very much. We're now moving to reports by county and district members. So, I can't remember which order we did it last time, but so we'll start at the beginning as it's a new year with Councillor Clark.
Should we start with county first, though?
Oh, I've dropped the gun, I do beg your pardon, Councillor Wade.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I attended the Children and Young People Select Committee, and the main item was the 2022-23 revenue budget for children's services. The government cuts to local government against a backdrop of increased demand mean that the cuts from 2019, 2021 and 2023 are overlapping, because demand for social services prevented all the cuts in expenditure being made in those years, presenting a considerable challenge to having a 127 million target of combined budget savings. This is further troubled by the government only allowing councils to increase their council tax by 1% for social care, because it was projected at 2%, given an overall increase of 3%. This equates to another 14 million reduction in expenditure. For children's service, they've worked out how to reduce and change operations to meet these challenges, but they have no control over inflation, rising costs and external factors. So the cliff edge, and I even got the head of children's to admit this, he said we're not near the cliff edge, but he has no control over the external factors which will impact how close that cliff edge gets, and when they cannot deliver services to the required standard. The County Council is adopting the principle of the Council undertaking civil enforcement of moving traffic restrictions, utilising new powers available to highway authorities under Part 6 of the Traffic Management Act of 2004. They're just doing it. This is in preparation for new central government powers associated with the civil enforcement of moving traffic restrictions. The new powers will enable English councils with highway authority status to enforce a range of traffic restrictions similar to those already enforced within London and parts of Wales. A range of traffic restrictions can be enforced under the new regulations. These include banned turns, yellow box markings, one-way streets, assets restrictions, mandatory cycle lanes and school clear markings. A cost with the cameras and associated works infrastructure are likely to be in the region of £30,000 per enforcement site. Additional annual revenue costs to operate and maintain the equipment is estimated to be in the region of £5,000 per site. Fines for moving traffic violations are expected to be set at £60 with the new regulations, with a reduction to £30 if paid within 14 days. The requirement to issue warning notices rather than fines to first-time contraveners during the first 6 months of enforcement will mean that the county council will receive very little revenue during that period. The only site proposed in the New Forest is currently, and I think we all agree with this, the Staplewood Lane junction on the A326 Marchwood bypass, with a prohibition of a right-hand turn which has a history of serious accidents due to that. Finally, members, Italy Crossroads is now open after much delays and lessons learned by the county now putting road schemes in the National Park. Thank you. I'll email this to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wade. Can I just note, I have a note from councillors that they've received the report from Councillor McAvoy.
Noted for residents, yeah.
Thank you very much, and thanks for that. So we're now moving on. Moving on, Councillor Clark.
Just, merely just to say one, I haven't got a written report, Claire, but just to say, as part of the district councils, we attended an online Zoom briefing by KPMG about Freeports, which was lots of aspirations, lots of a word soup, and nothing much really in substantive idea about the Freeports idea. It seems to be that there's lots of other views that actually the lectures are just being shifted around. There's no additional business. The Treasury abandoned them in 2012. Let's see what this experiment works out at. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Moving on then, please. I'll go next as we're going alphabetical. I just have a very short comment just to say that I attended with Councillor Malcolm Wade the Sustainable Waste Task and Finish Group meeting on the 16th of December. Really, it was basically about technical timelines and details and things, so nothing really of interest for the parish at that point. Moving on then to Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, there's some good news actually, two pieces of good news. Some of it will announce after the next planning meeting. But the first thing, I think Councillor Lumley and Councillor Wade are very supportive in my endeavours to get the two pieces of open space, one at Heatherstone and one at Armwood Avenue, that has been on for probably since we were elected. They've now been completed, and those two areas, they're calling it three areas actually, are now up for ideas to be put forward of what we'd like to see it done. So from all ages, thank you. And I was contracted last year to visit Redwood, which is a SEMHRP. They talk in a lot of acronyms up there, but it means social, emotional, mental health, restorative practice. This is a unit that's opened in the house. It used to be the caretakers on the front of Knosford, so it was a very interesting visit yesterday, where they basically want you to raise awareness that they are there, and they would very much like to keep it for our local own schools to feed into, and it is a unit that obviously I'm going to try and support, and is you know, very much helping children that are able to go there and access their facilities. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Alex Blake, please.
Sandra wants to go first as well.
I'll let her capture it.
Okay.
I'll come back to her.
Thank you, Jen. Again, quite a long report, I do apologise. The planning application is shortly to be placed by New Forest District Council at the Hyde Hospital site with regards to 21 affordable homes. The new homes have outline planning permission, and a future application will come to the parish planning committee. Therefore, I can't comment further. But once the plans are in the public domain, I would encourage any interested parties to share their views on the planning portal and with local councillors. NFDC will purchase the land from the NHS, and this will aim to contribute to the council's housing strategy and help it hit its 600 property target by 2026. Also on housing, NFDC are to raise rent from 4.1% on the 3rd of April 2022 for all its housing tenants. This is not something that I support, as it will impact our residents who have to endure 2 very challenging years, and with rising prices and inflation adding to their burdens we face. The reasoning was to support the maintenance budget, which is a vital part of what the housing team do. However, I do wonder if there could be a reduction in revenue moved to the capital housing strategy. However, this increase will contribute to an additional 6.2 million in revenue, and the housing maintenance budget will rise by over £300,000 year on year. We had an update in the Community Leisure and Overview panel on the leisure centres. We revised that they are now at 78% membership of pre-pandemic levels, and the Learn to Swim programme at 94%, with 4,266 pupils now learning to swim across the forest. There have been 267 referrals for the Active Lifestyles programme, and a working group has begun monitoring the contract with Freedom Leisure. The planned installation of new soft play at Applemore and a new Elevate Fitness studio is planned to begin this month, and while other planned improvements will be delayed 10 to 12 weeks to allow for the project to be completed within budget. Prices did go up at the beginning of the year throughout the service as noted in the contract. Okay, a report will go to Cabinet on the future of the Division Golf Centre course. I'll share that in a future meeting. Councils met, had training on how SIL monies, community infrastructure levy works. I will say that the big highlight was that we get 25% of community infrastructure levy funds rather than 15% because we have a neighbourhood plan. In community grants, the annual community grants were ratified by the Community Leisure Group before they go to full council. Among them, 7,500 capital grants to Waterside Primary, and local community grants for the Handy Trust, Youth Hospice Ability Service, Yellow Door, that's domestic violence support service, and Community First Wessex were the ones that were probably relative to our community. I've personally donated from my councillor pot to the Handy Trust and the Healthy Haven Garden alongside Councillor Clark. And the Safer Euphoric Strategic Assessment update. Very quickly, in High, in 2020 to 2021 versus the previous year, reported crime figures were shared and obviously accounting for the pandemic. However, violence against the person was down over 10%, with a slight rise in sexual offences. Robbery and burglary is down. Theft and criminal damage was also down, notably year on year. However, there has been a rise in drug offences.
Thank you
There
very
is more,
much.
but I was given time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wade. Councillor Delamain.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as in my role as a district councillor, I was invited by the Politics Project to a digital surgery with a class from Rosewood School. They asked me a variety of questions, like how do I become a councillor, what are the qualifications for being a councillor, and do I ever feel like giving up? In the course of the discussion, I explained about our Climate Emergency Committee, and some of them expressed an interest in recycling and litter picking. I also mentioned that we'd hoped to set up a youth council sometime pre-COVID, and some of them expressed an interest in this, and their teacher is to forward a list of names to help progress this. Also, like Alex, I attended the presentation on the community infrastructure levy. And yeah, as Alex said, we get 25% because we've got a neighbourhood plan, and 5% on admin, and the remaining 70% NFDC uses around the district. And I must admit, I got in a little bit of muddle about the little money, because I think our beef is about the actual capital money from the sale. But anyway, I asked a question about the little money, and they said that because it's not residential, well, they didn't answer at the time, but I got an email very promptly about it. Because it's not residential, we don't get SIL money from it, but there was a section 106 agreement of £100,000 as a transport contribution, and they sent me a copy of some road improvement projects that have been done around the district, including some in Hyde and Dibden, things like traffic calming. I didn't even realise the district got involved in highway stuff, but anyway, traffic calming, cycleways and pedestrian crossings. And some of those have been completed in conjunction with Hampshire. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Delamain. Moving on now to reports from members serving on outside bodies. Oh, I do beg your pardon, Councillor Wayne.
We've got them twice.
I've obviously got blocks this evening.
Right, okay, right members. I attended the planning committee this month. There were no local applications for parish. Along with Councillor Osborne, I attended the Environment and Sustainability Overview Scrutiny Panel. A full agenda, an update on the waste strategy, which is impacted by government and legislation, Hampshire County Council actions for waste disposal. Final strategy will be agreed by NFDC in March 2022 in the Cabinet and by the Council in April 2022. Now, there is a section on dashboards for the leader, environment and planning. So anybody with a business background used to data dashboards will be appalled by the standards of the ones presenting. They were data averse, badly constructed, key activities are the same as specific actions, completely poor standard, more of a notebook than a dashboard. It is a dashboard for a wagon, let alone a motor vehicle. I shared these views with the meeting, and you know what? There's no real defence, because they couldn't defend how bad they were, because they were that poor. We reviewed the transport development contributions and discovered they had money left over from previous projects, something of which Councillor Delamere has just referred to, which were completed or not being done. And the waterside area would gain 300,000. I challenged, with all the development going on, we should have more, because coastal towns got 500,000. But the Chief Planning Officer confirmed we would not be forgotten when it came to new monies on transport projects, or we're older to that. We talked about green infrastructure and the speed of New Milton and air quality in relation to plan and review developments. Again, I raised the A326 and the development to the east of the waterside, and how the cumulative impact to keep our environment safe needs to be managed and properly monitored. Finally, in regards to NFDC Information Office operating times in Hythe, I and our local NFDC members have been campaigning to increase the hours it should be reopened, as Hythe Office has a short development time of all the offices in the Forest District. The response I've had was totally inappropriate and not acceptable. So I've arranged to meet NFTC officers and the portfolio holder, along with our local NFTC members who can get there, and we try and get this resolved to get opening times to the required amount for our local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Moving on to reports from members serving on outside bodies. Do we have any? Thank you, Councillor Wade.
Relatively breaking news. I had a phone call from a representative from Age Concern who are having their first in-person meeting in 2 years on Monday, and I've been invited to attend. So that will be, I've only just been assigned to this group as an outside body, but they are having a meeting on Monday, so I'll go along and I hope you'll be able to update next meeting.
Thank you very much. I'll just add a note about our first Rock the Train meeting, and Councillor Lovell and myself attended, along with the clerk and our development officer, and that's the first of a number of meetings to do with the Rock the Train event, which is a big event this year, so looking forward to working together on that. Councillor McLean will be joining us, I hope, in good time to get on with that. Excellent. So are there any more outside body reports? Moving on then. So now the public forum. Do we have any submitted questions in the public forum?
No.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? No? Fantastic. So we will move on then to the exciting item of the evening, which is...
Number 9.
Oh, do I? Yeah, I suppose we have to do that one again. Item number 9. Do we have any questions? Thank you, Councillor Fairhead.
I think it's a question to Councillor Malcolm Wade. I was asked today, which is why I've not been able to get hold of the ward councillors yet, I believe it's called Sovereign Housing Association, above the Croft. They don't have the over rubbish collection. It's done by New Forest District Council, but they do not have recycling or glass collection. Does the councillor know why that is the case and what can be done to improve it?
Sorry, can I respond to that? Because I'm the ward councillor there.
Yeah, sorry, I got to you.
I mean, actually, there might be a weird boundary with Dearly Way, which means technically it might be Mark's ward, because there's more boundary. I think it might just still be mine. But I'd have to ask NFDC's waste team on that, because I have another outstanding question with them at the moment. So,
So I was only approached this afternoon, so I didn't have a chance to contact him.
and could you put that in an email as well for me, so I can have an example to forward it to the officer? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wade.
Yeah, is the chairman aware that Lidl's, in their period before they built the supermarkets, promised to put traffic calming in South Street, amongst many other promises for local. But the local Conservatives supported the Conservative administration in spending very little, if any, of that money that they got from that 106 money in Highland Dibden. And I would love to see evidence of any of this built there at all, but spent there at all. As regards the money from the sale of the site, that young Councillor Wade actually asked the question. It was put into the general fund, and I expect a lot of that went to fund the beach huts in Milton. Second one, is the chairman aware? I will be bringing along to the next parish council meeting a motion to support Hampshire County Council proposals for 20-mile limits in the urban areas, because I think it's a really good safety measure, and it will be looking for this council to write in support of that motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. To answer that, I was not aware of the scheme to introduce it earlier. I am, however, aware that there is a change of view from the County Council in terms of working with parish and town councils at having a strategy towards having 20 mile an hour or restricted speed zones. There is a great sense of urgency from, I would say, most district, most parish and town councils to move forward with that. And I'm hoping that there is a way that local areas can really start to shape what they want in their area to make the best use of these traffic calming schemes. So that is something as part of my membership of the Association of New Forest Councils. They are driving that currently and pressurising the county council. So I think there's certainly a mind to move forward on that, and hopefully we'll get some movement on that very soon. Councillor Wade.
Simply, is the chairman aware that I think Councillor Osborne has somewhat undersold her achievement in her councillor report? It might be something minor as having some bits of grass cut, but that has been overgrown at the top of Heatherstone Avenue and Armand Avenue for years, and people have been on to councils for years and have seen it. And I think the persistence shown by it was other councils, but predominantly yourself. And as a council, sometimes it can take forever for the smallest win. And that win is something the local residents, particularly around Heatherstone Avenue, have been asking for. So do not undersell it, and we are very grateful for that. And also the NFDC officers, Simon Hannay, among others, who helped us and get the contract signed. And there's a lot of things that are criticism. Sometimes those small wins need to be celebrated, but well done, Steph.
It's been very interesting actually, seeing how much work they've had to do.
Yes, it's for something as simple as getting the rights to cut a bit of land. The contracting and the behind the scenes from NFDC officers is extraordinary, so it's praise to them as well.
Councillor Osborne.
Chairman, I'd like you to be aware that the houses that are going to be built around the High Hospital are going to be supposedly affordable. Is there any way the parish can maybe put in a request that these houses are offered to local people and key workers or things like that?
I may have to declare an interest backing onto that, so perhaps I'm not the best person to answer that point. But that's certainly in the documentation that we've received so far. There is a commitment to affordable housing.
Yeah.
What affordable housing means is another question altogether. But that there is a commitment to that, and I believe that the county council is working with the district council to achieve that. But as I say, I think I might well have a vested interest, so I think I'll just keep my comments to that at the moment.
I saw Councillor Cleary, sort of promoting it, and I just thought we need to make a point that we need our people that work at that hospital to be able to live locally.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point, and I think we will need to do what we can. Councillor Wade.
But I would say, from a planning point, I would say you're not currently on the planning committee, so my advice would be to, as well as put the comments into the NFDC planning portal, share them with the planning councils, because really we have to be cautious about how we comment until such application comes to the planning committee, and then we can make suggestions. Some might not be planning relevant, so we can probably really only talk about the planning side of things, but we can sort of make those points for councils, but to be cautious until it comes to planning committee. That's why I'm going to be somewhat obtuse.
You could advise me when to say something.
Excellent. Councillor Wade.
Chairman, whilst I sit on the Forest District Planning Committee and cannot talk about specific applications, it is very important to know that there are very many of us, including myself, that really support the need for affordable housing. And part of that is actually the NFDC working with developers to build starter homes for young people to get on the ladder to own bigger homes as we go along, as well as building social housing. So that's something that very many councils are sympathetic towards and support for.
Thank you very much for that. Right, we now move on to item 10. So may I thank our candidates for option for attending this evening, and indeed for their potential commitment to the role. It's lovely to see where there are so many parish councils that struggle to fill vacancies. It's wonderful to have people who are prepared to give up their available free time to do a voluntary role in the community. This section, you had an opportunity to prepare a very short statement, just giving some bones to why you feel you would like to stand for this role. We will go in alphabetical order of surname, if that's all right. Starting with Chris. How are we going to organise some microphones?
There's a microphone on the top of the fireplace.
Fantastic.
That's right, well
So it
done.
can be a roving microphone. Brilliant, thank you.
We are.
Chairman, Councillor McLean's got some.
Chairman,
Councillor McLean.
wouldn't it be appropriate for the other two candidates to go out while one person speaks?
It's actually a public meeting though. We cannot,
Sorry?
it's actually a public meeting. We cannot force
Well,
people to leave the
that
meeting.
is fine. I just thought that it might be, think better.
Amazing, can't do it. It is what it is.
My view is that it's a public meeting and we cannot ask people to leave. But
Certainly, that's
if anyone's embarrassed, then please feel free, but it's a public meeting.
No, that's fine.
Sorry, Chris, over to you.
Okay, well, before we have a minute apparently, don't we? So before I start, could I just say well done, Councillor Osborne, what you did. A lot of people have been trying a long time to get that.
Yeah.
You do you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me tell you why you need me. You need an opposition. You've only just recently got a small one. Many pundits have said, and I quote, a council at any level is only as good as its opposition, and that is true democracy, unquote. I can remember the Conservative leader of NFDC bemoaning the fact that the Lib Dems had only returned 3 members after an election, and I was one of them. And he said that without a good number of opposition members, his members would argue amongst themselves, and they did. I can only remember one resignation in 20 years of being on this council, and that was because of somebody moving away. So far, in this council's short life, you've had 3 resignations, Another councillor has bravely crossed the floor and felt so glad that they put a video on Facebook stating this council was toxic. And one councillor that said they were going to resign hasn't, and only comes once every 6 months to this meeting. So will you choose me? No, I'd offer odds of 100 to 1. You all know Einstein's definition of stupidity: keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. I don't think at this moment in time you need a new person. You need an experienced opposition who operates politically with a small p and not a capital P.
Thank you very much. Vicky, if you'd like to take the floor now, thank you.
Firstly, sorry to the clerks, I didn't sit on the front seat. That's kind of a COVID habit, I've just moved away. My name is Vicky Joynes. I have lived on the waterside for 20 years. I run an alms house charity over town. I'm a chartered surveyor by profession. Property and specifically housing is a big thing that I'm interested in. I'm a school governor at Applemore. I've got 2 children that are there. I've been a governor at Orchard Infants. I think it's very important that we support housing for the youngsters that live here, because we seem to have an awful lot of building of the older housing that isn't even affordable by those who sell their own houses on the waterside to usually move into. I feel I've got quite a lot of experience in terms of housing, and I would like to be able to help the parish maybe to do a community land trust to try and maybe raise some funds and get some housing where NFDC might not be looking particularly to this parish and its housing needs.
Thank you very much, thank you. And Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I promise I won't do my Elvis impression.
Want to take your mouse down? Well done.
Yes, that would be much easier, thank you. So, likewise, I've lived in the parish for almost 20 years, and in my own little way, I've always tried to support the communities that I've lived in. In 2019, I retired from my position as a senior construction director for a reputable national house builder, and decided that I wanted to stay much closer to home after spending a lot of time all over the country, and I wanted to serve my most local community the best I can, so I set up a business as a local handyman. Now, my clientele is, mainly through recommendation, the elderly and the vulnerable in the community, and many of these also seek my counsel outside of my usual remit, as they recognise that I care about them, not just about as a source of income, but also I care about them and their quality of lives. As someone who is recognised in the community for my honesty, tact and diplomacy, I feel that using these skills and those that I've gained working as a director of house builders, I can bring these skills to the benefit of the parish council. In addition, I've managed to forge very strong working relationships with numerous of the local businesses, as well as some very senior police officers and local schools that my grandchildren attend. So given the opportunity, or given the chance, I relish the opportunity to provide the same sort of support and reassurance to the wider community as I do to my current friends, family and customers. And also I put on an awesome Christmas light display.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here today.
Right, we'll move into the voting bit. Before I do that, though, I would like to say thank you very much to all 3 of you, and say clearly one of you will be successful today, but I do hope that those people who are not successful today look forward to giving it another go, because there will be elections before very long. So there will be other opportunities to apply, and I hope not being successful today won't put you off applying again. So thank all 3 of you. Right, Sue, would you like to guide us through this a little bit?
It's quite simple. Everybody has a piece of paper in front of them and a pen. Can you please write the name of the your preferred candidate and then pass it to me? Just one name, your preferred candidate, pass it to me. I will count the votes and we announce the successful person. That's all I was done.
No, it's all done. No.
Oh, no, it's not.
I've done
Thank you. We have a successful candidate, and that's Vicky. So thank you very much, Vicky. And if you choose to do so, if you sign your papers, you're actually eligible to join the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Could we have 20 seconds whilst you come and sign your declaration of acceptance of office? Because you're now, once you sign that, you're a councillor.
That's it.
And you're welcome to stay for the meeting and take your seat at the table once this is signed. So,
Again, my commiserations to the other candidates, but being what I say, there will be other opportunities, and I do hope you take.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. I've also said that if there's other committees that the councillors think that I might be able to assist on, then please feel free to give me a shout. And assist where I can.
Fantastic.
That's a very gracious offer. Thank you.
Sorry?
That's a very gracious offer. Thank you. Rock the train.
I've already told him about that.
We have our next meeting on the 9th of February, 10 o'clock in here.
10 o'clock.
If you're interested.
I'll message you about it anyway.
good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, second.
9 o'clock.
Right.
Time of emergency.
Right, okay. Yeah, just, I'm on Messenger or Facebook, so just feel free.
Sandra,
Dad, if you send it to me, I can send it on to
you just sent a message asking for
Send it
it.
to me, I'll send it all on.
You said, when was your message about it?
Okay.
Do you live tight? Yes, I do.
Agenda for Wednesday. Agenda for Wednesday, meeting afternoon.
Right. Thank you very much, councillors, and welcome, Vicky. We move on now, please, to item 12, which is the card reading machine.
No, it's 11.
Oh, goodness, I'm doing well tonight, aren't I? Right, 11A, this is to consider appointing a representative to serve Hyde and Dibden Woodland Waterside Group. This was deferred from December 2021. Councillor Lovell, have you come to a decision on that one?
Yeah, unfortunately I can't at the moment with time.
Excellent. Okay, that's no problem at all. Do we have any other councillors who would like to join this group?
now, what it's about.
You may. It's a group that basically does the woodland walks. It's bird boxes. It's all about nature and conservation. I can't remember how often they meet.
Once a month, Mr. Chairman.
Once a month, thank you. Yeah.
Shall we email you and find some information?
Yeah.
I think, Ron,
I've got a lot of them round my way, so I've got a lot of them round my way.
we won't make a decision on that tonight. We'll give you the opportunity to find out a little bit more about it and then decide if you'd like to do so. That's not a problem. So we'll defer that to next meeting, please.
Thank you.
11B is to consider a new councillor appointments to committees as necessary. So
They all have it.
right. So basically, Vicky, you've got the opportunity to join any of the committees you wish. There is no commitment to people to join any more than you feel comfortable doing. So we have there's planning, which it would be excellent if you're able to do planning. We have GP&F, which is the kind of finance one. We have amenities. We have climate. And
That's a work.
that's GP&F now, isn't it? And personnel.
Chairman,
Councillor Wade.
suggest to help a new councillor welcome to council recruitment. To understand if the clerk just gave a brief indication of how many times they meet a year, I think that will be an assist in your decision.
I think climate is every 3 months. It's every 6 weeks, I think, for amenities and GP&F. And planning is every month due to the nature of having to make responses. And personnel is as and when necessary.
And just to add to that, planning will always be the second Wednesday of the month, unless we have to work around Christmas. As I say, amenities and GPF follows the 6-week window. Council is always the fourth Wednesday of the month, with the exception of Christmas, because you kind of want Christmas off.
Can we just say as well that planning is where the action's at?
I was going to say, planning is probably where my heart lies.
That's music to Alex's ears.
Yes, I'll go for planning. It might clash with my trustees' board meetings if it's second Wednesdays. So I've got in March, June, September and December.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other councillors who wish to volunteer extra committee duties before we move on? No, I think we'll move on now. So, moving on to item 12, card reader machine. This is to consider if a card reader machine is still necessary, given limited use of council transactions and in the light of high cost. If a machine is necessary, to consider the best option. So we have two considerations there. First of all, deciding whether we wish to have one at all, and then should we decide that we do wish to have one, which option we would like to go with. So the second one becomes redundant if we decide no with the first. So could I ask for a vote?
No. Questions?
Yes, certainly. Fire away.
Can I ask the clerk, how often is the card reader used or expected to be used, and what particularly it would be used for?
On item 12, have you got this in your pack?
I haven't got it here, but
Yep. I've given the usage times in there, how many times we've used it. I think we've used it 4 times since last July. In my view, you don't need it. That's my view.
That's good enough.
But it looks, if you look back before COVID started, we used it a bit more. But to be honest, a lot of people now are moving to internet banking, and it's so much quicker to do it that way. I do have a few comments that it might be encouraging for cinema goers if we had a card machine there possibly. But at less than a £5 a time, it's not a huge amount really. And I think we end up paying more for the privilege of having it. That's my view and advice to you. So my view is that it's not necessary, but obviously it depends on what you want.
Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Can I just get something clear? That this is about us taking our income, get our income. Now, one of the things that the pandemic brought about is people didn't use cash, and lots of people use plastic. There is a body of thought, whether one agrees it or not, that ultimately cash will be something consigned to the museum, and we'll be using plastic or other methods, phones even, to pay for things. And if you go out and look at commercial etc., loads of people using their phone apps and they're using cards. I think that we need to be able to take payments by card for parish council facilities, because we're in the 21st century. Okay, I know we're a parish, so perhaps we should have a call pen and a cheque, but I actually believe we should look at taking card payments. The fact that we haven't had a lot recently is more reflective of what's been going on with the pandemic and the lockdown, and people haven't been doing as many social things as possible. But I think it's the way of the world, and we should be a modern, forward-looking council, and not necessarily. And I might say that we haven't had a huge usage, but that may well change as we go forward, and we should look to be on top of this sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alex Wade.
Yes, just to add to that point, repeat any bits of it. The office hours, once we've had discussions at NFTC, might bring the hours of the Grove, extend the hours back to how they should reflect the other ones in the wider district. And obviously as we come out of the pandemic, we might see more visitors coming in to the centre. Another bank obviously is closed, and another cash point is closed in the village centre. So the opportunities of accessing cash for any resident is becoming much more minute in the community. And online banking is a valid point, but there's still a group of residents within our community who won't use online banking, who for whatever reason choose not to use it. So I think we still value that experience. I did think the one that you highlighted in point 2 was something I'd happily support. I thought was a very sensible approach. I thought it was the best option, to be fair. And that's what I proposed. But I still think we should have a card reader, and the one that you proposed in the minutes would be the one I chose.
Councillor Osborne, was that a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to support the clerk actually in not particularly having a card reader for some excuse very little. I believe we ought to.
Sorry, can we only have one person talking at once, because it will make it much harder for people who are viewing the recording to be able to hear what's going on. I apologise for that interruption, Councillor Osborne.
And I believe that cash shouldn't be abolished, and I believe that there's a lot of people that still need to use cash, me included. And when the pandemic arrived and I went down to Tesco and they told me I couldn't pay by cash, I said, well, put the stuff back in. And then they could take cash. But I didn't have a card, and I don't want to use a card, and I just believe that, these sort of small village facilities should still allow for that. I mean, you can do bank transfers, I guess, can you? Or how else can you pay for it?
To put it in context, some of the allotments, the charges are something like £4.50, £5.
Yeah.
And if you're only, if your cost is a few £100 a year, and you're not even taking that amount, you're not getting any revenue back from your facilities, your services. It's just from a financial perspective, which is, my eyes have pound signs in them, looking at the finance, it doesn't pay. But I get what you're saying about the future. I just think encouraging people to do bank transfers of cash or backs is financial ways to go.
Sorry, we've got Councillor Clark next. Thank you.
Just District Council on the service task and finish group about maintaining access for all residents as much as possible. And one of the things that would seem to me slightly hypocritical to sort of deny the use of a card reader here, and yet advocate at the District Council continuing services, including the information office here. So it seems to me it's just, maybe a decision too early. We could kind of leave it to see what the effects of the pandemic are next year, because I believe that perhaps the card reading might increase in value, or as our prices will increase in value anyway.
Right. Councillor
Just
Wade.
one quick back. I hope I may say I totally think we should have a card reader, but not still take cash if people want to pay it. I wasn't advocating card only. I advocate if people want to pay with cash, let them pay with cash. If they want to pay with like farm animals and do it like that way, I don't really mind. But we should have a card reader for the future.
Councillor Fair.
Yeah, thank you. I support the clerk's view. At the moment in time, it's not beneficial to have it. It's going to cost us more than what we're taking in. Our budget at the moment will not allow us to do that. So I think that we should at the moment put it on the back burner and come back to it in 3 months, 6 months time when we see what the situation is like once we come out of this COVID lockdown situation.
Thank you very much. So I think if we have the caveat that we will return to this subject in a year's time, if we're in mind of that.
So we already have a card reader at the moment, which is costing us a fortune.
Right, I understand you. Right, okay.
Chairman?
I was going to say, we use a sum up at work, and I arrived there 5 years ago, and we still paid salary checks by cheque, all of our contractors by cheque, and little old ladies were expected to go down the bank and cash money in order to pay us. So one thing that we did learn in the pandemic is our little old ladies didn't go out anywhere, and therefore those who got cards by their family, we could at least go to their door and use it. So we wanted the most cost effective one, so if we were going to change, I could recommend that has worked for us, and we needed to keep costs down as well.
Sure, I go back one point. I understand about costs, and I totally respect that opinion of financial. But actually, we're here to provide a service. We're here to serve people. We are not a profit-making organisation. We don't want to make a loss. We're here to provide a service. And if people want to pay by cash, by or card, they should have the facility to do either. That's all I'm saying.
Councillor Lovell.
Could we not get rid of the card machine we've got now because it costs a fortune, and for 3 months not have one? And let's see what happens in 3 months' time, how many people are coming in asking to use the card machine, and how much it's actually affecting everything. If you've got 3 or 6 months to see without having one at all, what difference that's going to make or not make.
We could do that and log every request.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, then we need a proposal then, don't we? Because we've slightly gone from the. Are we able to do that? So.
Your council, you can do whatever.
Well, I'm aware that when you've got proposals in the agenda, we've got to keep within the spirit of it.
Well, the item is on the agenda. That's the most important thing legally. But right. If you're suggesting a kind of solution which is a mixture of the two, then come up with a proposal. Right.
In that case, I think the first thing we need to do is to decide whether we're happy to suspend the use of the non-cost-effective card reader at the moment. If we're happy to go with that, or if we're not happy to go with that, because that was the proposal that was raised, that we have a period of time where we assess what the implications of that are in practice. Are councillors happy to go with that proposal and vote on that one?
I just want to respond to it. In any other year, I would have really liked to give that a try, but with the amount of issues we're having with the Grove at the moment, and residents coming in the Grove and being frustrated at lack of services and it being closed and not being told the impact on our parish offices, I really like the idea, but I just don't think these next 3 months of working to get services back and working to get it open is the best time, in my view. I could be wildly disagreed with by other councillors, but it's such a councillor's answer that in any other time I would have probably given that a little bit more consideration. But what I know about the issues we're having with the office and residents trying to use it at the moment, I'm just not comfortable making it a little bit harder for the moment. So
that's two separate issues. So
I'm mixing up NFDC and the parish council, because obviously we don't deal with the NFDC items upstairs. They're two separate organisations.
It's connected under
yeah, fine.
Right, okay. Well, we can vote on that one, and if you don't agree with it, you vote against it, I think is the answer there. So I'm going to propose that we vote on suspending the use of the expensive card reader for a period of time, and then we review in, is 3 months a reasonable time? Are we happy with that?
Excuse me,
Councillor Wade.
for party's sake, without a recommendation, what you're suggesting is an amendment to the recommendation? Is that not correct? So we have to vote on the amendment and then we have to vote on the recommendation. This is from a process perspective.
We haven't actually got a proposal yet. The proposal that's come through is actually to suspend the current provider. Yeah. Yep.
So isn't that an amendment to the recommendation or to change it?
Well, it's not actually it's a consideration, it's not actually a proposal on the agenda.
It says recommendation on mine. It does actually say that.
Steph would like to speak.
I'd like to query the word suspend. Is that going to mean that the cost for this reader is still going? If we're going to, I consider here that it seems to say we're going to get rid of it, and then if we get rid of it, we want one of the ones that are cheaper, if that's what we vote. But at the moment, we're saying, do we want to keep this costly one? So I thought suspend is not the right word.
Can I clarify that a backing document is literally just a suggestion for you? It's not me telling you what to do. Heaven forbid. It's a suggestion. It's my recommendation, or whoever the officer is that's written it is a recommendation. But actually, on the card reader machine number 12, the first point is to consider if a card reader machine is still necessary. That's what it is. So basically, you're considering is it still necessary? And the motion that's just come up is that you're proposing to suspend the current expensive card provider whilst you have time to consider if it's necessary. You give yourself 4 or 5 months or whatever, and then we'll come back with an analysis of whether it's justified.
So just to clarify, I'm going from the agenda, which is the legal possible document for this guy. Councillor Fair.
Can we, speaking of what Steph just said, can we change suspend to cancel?
Yes, that makes sense. To cancel this particular card reader and to consider using a more cost-effective card reader after a trial period. So that sounds fine to me. Our Councillor Lovell.
Sorry, can I just ask, how do you, if you cancel the card machine, have we still got it for another month? I don't know when the timings end on it, or...
I think we've had it for a long time, and I don't think there is a contract. There's not a contract.
So if you cancelled it tomorrow, that would be it. So then we would have a good few months without it. I'm just thinking that maybe we may still end up having it to the end of February, everyone. That's all I was thinking.
It might do it by month. We'll have to go and check it. But what I've got here is a proposal is to cancel the current provider and assess if there are requests in the next 4 months.
Yeah.
And the 3 months trial will go from when we
finishes,
start,
yeah.
whatever time that might be.
Yeah.
And then if I take that back to GP&F, is that okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we will need to vote on that now. Are all councillors happy that they understand what we're voting on?
Yeah. Yes.
Right, I'm not going to say any more. Right, those in favour, please raise their hands. Thank you. Those not in favour or against, raise their hands. Thank you. And those abstaining, raise your hands. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to item 13, which is flooding, which was a hot topic, if that's not a poor choice of term, fairly recently. This is to agree to spend around £16,000 on increasing the soil level along the ridge of Prospect Place to mitigate the risk of flooding, whilst more funds are amassed for future larger scale piling works on the shoreline. To delegate authorities of the clerk in conjunction with the chair and vice chair regarding exact details and amount of works, This amount is already earmarked in funds for this purpose. Just to put that in some context, we have a number of flooding issues in the parish. Some of those flooding issues are on the list of to-do items from the Environment Agency and are not within the purview of the parish council to solve. I am aware that a number of residents are concerned about flooding, and there will obviously be concern, well, you know, if we're spending money on this part of the parish, why are we not spending money on a different part of the parish? And that is understandable. My understanding as it goes at the moment, having had a meeting fairly recently with the Environment Agency, which took some considerable time to organise, is that the Shaw Road flooding is currently within the realms of Hampshire highways. The culverts, the two culverts that go down towards the pier, are within the purview of the Environment Agency, who is also looking at the shoreline because they've been big projects, they don't fund little projects. And our Prospect Place project is a tiny project as far as they're concerned. And it doesn't really come within that. I've spoken at length with our district officers, and their view is that the Prospect Place project is our concern because it is our asset. So it is a parish council matter, which is why we're looking to doing what we can to mitigate the flooding before the more extensive works are looked at by the Environment Agency. Do I have any comments, questions on that so far? Have I made that?
That's very clear.
Clear. Thank you. So, are we at a stage where we're happy to vote on this proposal to spend that amount getting the Prospect Place flood arrangements? Councillor Wade.
Second it, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Again, if I can ask councillors who are in agreement with that to raise their hands, please. Thank you. Councillors who disagree with that? And any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I was hoping to be able to report back on a meeting with one of our local residents and the deputy clerk, but unfortunately our deputy clerk has been hit with COVID, so we've had to postpone that meeting. But one of our local residents has been working extensively on that, and we are a debt of gratitude to him for the amount of technical work he's done, which has helped us in our meetings with the Environment Agency. Okay, moving on to B. Harwell Precinct flooding issues from December, to note that investigations are being made into adjacent ownership to ascertain liability. You will be aware that we have a long-running series of issues with not just the pedestrian walkway from the car park, but also the car park that was behind the old NatWest Bank, which flooded. So we had some commercial premises that were not only flooding from the front, but flooding from the back as well. And unfortunately, both those assets are private, so it's a matter of finding out who's responsible and getting them to actually do their maintenance. There are a number of issues there, and I am aware that we've had a number of residents and others who signalled issues with the new development in Harwell Road, explaining the problem with that, and unfortunately they were overruled at district. So some of that has been exacerbated by the levels in that. Right, so I think that's just really for noting that one.
Yeah.
C, South Street drainage works, to note that Hampshire County Council is undertaking excavations and an update is being pursued by the county councillor. We had a situation where they were there ready to do the work, but uncovered a problem that stopped them from completing the work and putting a better drain in there. So it is still ongoing. Do you have an update on that?
Well, yeah, that's more of a clarification, Chairman. And when the Churchill Homes facility was built, some utilities were put in the road, and Hampshire wasn't advised that they were put in where they were. So when Hampshire went to do the drain, there was whether it's electricity or gas had been placed where they were going to put the drain. The fundamental problem with South Street drain, which affects a number of others, these were put in a long time ago, and their bores are relatively small. Although the overall amount of rainwater that the UK gets hasn't really changed in hundreds of years, the pattern of its delivery on our land has. And we get massive quantities of rain over a short period of time, and the drains can't cope, which is why there are flood areas we see throughout the country, not just here. And climate change indicates that this situation will only get probably worse until the climate plateaus out a bit. So what Hampshire can do is we have to regularly clean them because they get bunged up quite easily, but also in certain areas, and we have to do it. The thing with South Street, the road is actually highway in certain areas is higher than the properties bordering it. So when there's flood and cars come along, it produces a miniature tidal wave that floods over the properties. And I've been to the houses and seen this where they take place. So I will be pursuing the county, and I've made another note to pursue again to find out where they're getting on with that. Because the fact that they've got a utility in the way, it does present a problem, but there must be a way around this, even if it means digging up the other side of the road and pointing the pipe that way. So, when I get some information, Chairman, I will be happy to read that and report it to
Thank you very much, Councillor Wade. Councillor Wade.
My question to the county councillor is, obviously he's with his district out to hand, has he been in touch with the Building Development Control at NFDC? Because surely that is a issue that should have been raised, or can it be raised for Building Development Control now? I mean, I had other issues with Building Development Control about that proposal, but that seems quite a concern and quite something that's been overlooked.
I don't think there's anything they can do about it. They're not going to get the utilities dug up and moved, because then the people living in Churchill Homes will have no gas or electricity, or whichever one it is. So it's a good point well made, but development control and enforcement, they're not the panacea of changing things that you might wish them to be. And very often they just go back for a preserved planning permission. We don't need planning permission to put utilities in. There are different regulations that cover that. And the fact is, I think the utility company and Hampshire were communicating.
Thank you. And finally, item D, 2 large waterside culverts. To note that the Environment Agency is undertaking a wider review of planned waterside drainage, and it's being contacted for details of the review to ascertain what works are planned and have already been done. I believe that, well, over to you, Councillor.
I was just going to ask a question, Chair. These are the really important ones that were major players in the flood that we had. You return to the 2 that are underneath the pier. It's really, really important we get an answer to this, because those floods that affected businesses, and I know Councillor Lovell knows only too well what happened, and homes as well. We've really got to get this fixed, and we've got to get on with this. So we've got to chase up the Environment Agency to get an answer, because we're only getting the next high tide like that, and the urban, it will be worse, the whole thing will be repeated. And it's a known fact that sea level is rising a little bit, so we need to get on top of them and get an answer back to this council what they've done.
Well, we know questions were being asked back in the 80s,
Yeah.
so I think we've waited long enough, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Point taken. Thank you, Councillor Wade.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, I hate to say it, but unless something happens, I worry that a similar situation will happen again particularly in the village centre. Are there any learnings about how quickly county or district, I appreciate like fiscal resource of the parish can assist, whether it's communication, whether it's working with the residents. Are there any learnings that can be taken forward with all three authorities to try and respond in some capacity, even down to
I think the issue there, Councillor,
closing the roads even?
I think the issue there, Councillor Wade, it's not just authorities involved, it's private companies as well. And so that always complicates things. So I'm afraid I don't believe in the way that these things work. It's ever going to be smooth, but it's just a matter of chipping away and keeping asking the questions.
One thing I can say just positive on that is that we have ordered about a dozen cones which we're going to put in the AXO vehicle, because I think there's quite a lot of wash that came out of the water, and so and they've got long wellies.
This is probably one thing that I think we can achieve is simply just put the codes out there and close.
Well, we can't close it.
Not close it, but put the code.
We can channel it down narrower. So yes, we have sorted that out.
And when we have an event where obviously the roads are closed, such as in the Mistletoe Fair, is there something we can do from an emergency perspective? I mean, it's not our responsibility as a district or a county, but we can request that an emergency closure is put in, if anything, to stop the wash and risk of flooding to the businesses from the quite significant flooding in the village.
I don't think you can put in a request to close a road just in case something happens.
No, but when it happens, it's a quicker reaction, as it were.
We're not lawfully allowed to close a road, but what we can do is actually make it so that it's part of the health and safety for the community, and that we can actually put the cones in to channel people down and have an AXO at each end directing the traffic.
Okay.
Comes in, argue about it later.
Well, we were telling people to turn around and I'll say obstruction.
Thank you.
If they could, because I don't think they realise.
Just to answer Alex's point, roads can only be closed by traffic order, which has to be put in place before it takes place. Apart from that, the only people who close a road are the police. They can do it straight away for security reasons or so forth. But so the parish council can't do it. So unless the police are of a mind to close a road, there's nothing we can do. And I'm not saying negative, I'm just giving you the reality of the situation.
Thank you. Right, moving on to item 14, replacement vehicle programme. This is to authorise purchase of new maintenance vehicle as per backing report. The item is in the current year's budget and needs completion by the end of the financial year. I've just worked out what that means. I trust that councillors have seen the backing report. Do we have any questions or comments on this before I ask for a vote on this?
It's needed, Chairman.
Obviously, Councillor Jones, you won't have seen the backing report.
I have just read it.
Fantastic. Councillor Wade.
Nearly in the extent that it answered any questions and anticipated what I would probably have asked in the meeting with regards to obviously the climate change, why we've chosen it, and obviously the point about the signage in particular, we've chosen it as a vehicle. I think it's a very sensible approach, and obviously I support it, and I'm sure taking into consideration Marcus and the team, their opinions are valued completely when it comes to choosing the right vehicle.
Any other comments, any other questions before we go on that? Right, so can I ask for a vote on this one then? So if you're in favour of authorising purchase, would you please raise your hand? If you're against, abstaining, thank you, that's carried.
Marcus will be happy.
I'm sure. Right. Now we move. Thank you very much.
Lovely evening, thank you.
Right, so this is just noting, councillors, to receive an update on the financial effect of COVID-19 period, 1st of November to the 31st of December 2021. Can I just check councillors have noted that? Fantastic, thank you. Also for noting to receive the bank reconciliation report for November and December 2021. That's for noting. Councillors happy? Yes. And we now need to approve the quarterly spend budget report for the period 1st of October 2021 to 31st of December 2021, and to note the financial situation of the council.
Can I just say that it's going to be very challenging, your budget for next year. Not that you've done anything wrong, it's just that COVID and costs and everything, you know, it's going to be a very, very difficult budget. What I'm going to suggest is that the next GP&F committee appoints a working group of councillors to consider the next budget at a much earlier stage, so that we can work through what is going to be a tough situation.
Sorry, can you just clarify that? You want to start looking at the 23-24 budget?
23-24, yeah. It's going to be a tough one. Yeah.
I don't think we're alone in local authorities in that situation. Right, so we do need to approve it, so Councillor Wade.
Sorry. Can I ask a question? With regards to the income, particularly total income, it says currently we're 18,000 in favour of our budget. Was that anticipated? So, for example, it says budget 908,926 actual income to third quarter. Was that anticipated, or is that?
I think the 18, that is anticipated. However, if you're looking forward at anticipated income, I would usually err on the side of caution and not factor in that anticipated and factoring in is it 291,000 that we're going to spend towards the end of the year.
Because it implies that we've actually already hit the income budget and gone over it by 18,000. My question was, did you anticipate that happening, or is it income slightly improved beyond what we expected?
The way the income's done, sometimes you have things coming in which are a replay.
Okay.
So you've actually got the miscellaneous and a rechargeable amount, such as, say for example, the insurance claim. You know, we pay out, then we get it back in, but it has to go through the accounts somewhere. So it's not exactly money coming in, because it's something which we're paying for. And a grant, for example, as well, or Section 106 money coming in, or SIL, you know, it comes in but it goes out somewhere, but it has to go in the budget heading.
Right, Councillor Wade.
Chairman, thank you. Just to looking at this, those two lines, apart from Alex, it says on track, the budget's on track, isn't it? We've got 30% yet to actually spend. I'm looking at the figures. It's that the 682 is going to get this right to make sure I'm not making remaining full-year budget. So it says we're on track, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But at the bottom it says 57,000 deficit at the end of financial estimate. Can you explain if we're on track now? Why are we going to be 57 in the red?
What it means is that when you decided the budget last, I think it was November, December, and it was formally approved in January, I think it was, or December, it meant that in order to finance the current year's budget that we're in, that's going to be financed to the tune of about £57,000 by reserves. In other words, I don't think the precinct was raised last time.
Like the year before it wasn't because of COVID.
And the current year that you're in, it wasn't raised. No. So in other words, if you'd raised it by, what's that, about 4% maybe? If you'd raised it by that, then you wouldn't be going into reserves by 57,000.
Oh, I see. What you're saying is that we've used reserve budget.
Yeah, it's
so the deficit, I get it now.
It's using what's in reserve, and it's quite complicated to look into the bottom of it, but for audit requirements, they suggest between 3 and 6 months emergency contingency, so that the council can operate in an emergency. So if you take 6 months, which again are included, we have 6 months, however, that 57 goes into it. It goes into it and makes it minus, very slightly.
The last time we talked about that, we said we would still have 6 months, and that's what I'm trying to how it's changed.
Yeah. Right now, I'm actually doing a comparative analysis going back to the last 6 years to see what percentage 3 to 6 months emergency contingency we've had. And it seems that last year, the first year of COVID, was the first year for 6 years that you actually had 51% of it. Before that, it was about 31%.
How much, sir?
31.
31.
So we've
Yeah.
always used it then?
So yeah, I think it'll be easier to explain at GP&F.
No, that's fine.
And
I
I
just
give
would
you
like
the
clarification
spreadsheet in
what
front
that
of
meant.
you. Yeah,
I
it
don't-
means you're going to have a tough budget next year, basically.
But I don't think it's, you know, it's perfectly acceptable that, you know, you don't get situations like COVID every year.
No.
So I don't think in itself it's a particularly troubling thing as long as the trend doesn't continue. You know, it's having money for a rainy day, isn't it? That's what you have a contingency for. And if COVID wasn't a rainy day, then I don't know what is.
No.
Yeah.
But what it means is that we don't have any reserves left to prop up the budget for next
We,
year.
we will have to
And
be
you
as
have to
prudent
cut.
as we can be.
Strategic financial management.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love money.
Excellent. Are we happy on that?
Yep.
So I need to have a vote on approving that. So councillors who are in approval of the budget situation moving forwards, thank you very much. Councillors against? Councillors abstaining? Thank you. And we'll go back to the... We have a final one to do, which is 15D, to approve the accounts for payment for November and December. Can I have a councillor other than myself and Alex Wade approving that? Thank you very much, Councillor Cullen. And do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Wade. So we'll vote on that one as well, please. Councillors are happy to approve that. Raise their hands. Councillors against? And any abstentions? Thank you. Right, thank you. Yes.
We're just switching the